Barry Bonds was basically perfect at hitting baseballs. The son and godson of MLB greats, Bonds wielded jaw-dropping coordination and bat speed, plus a borderline paranormal ability to read pitchers and predict what they'd throw. In the 90s, Bonds developed into an elite multi-tool player. He hit hard, ran fast, and after moving to left field, learned how to defend pretty well too. Around the turn of the millennium, Bonds seemed to discover the joys of performance-enhancing drugs. He condensed his 5 tools into one godly sledgehammer. And aging Bonds did nothing but slug in the 2000s, and he did it better than anyone ever has. Those 2 discrete eras give Bonds a striking list of achievements and accolades. A run of gold gloves in the 90s, plus a 40-40 season in 96. In the 2000s, the all-time single-season records for home runs, slugging percentage, and walks. For that, Bonds earned 14 All-Star selections and a record 7 NL MVP awards, including one at age 26 and one at 40. And Bonds holds some monumental career records, including the most homers and walks ever produced. Bonds had his number 25 retired by the Giants, and he'd already be a Hall of Famer if people didn't think of him as a cheater. Despite unparalleled production and acclaim, Bonds left baseball wearing 0 World Series rings. What exactly made that so? How did 2 good teams with Earth's most dominant hitter fall short of a championship? How did Barry Bonds end up without a title? First, some acknowledgements. One is the caveat that we're talking about baseball, which puts a hard ceiling on any individual player's influence. You are restricted to 1/9 of the at-bats, and you can only field the balls hit your way. Technically, Bonds could have batted 1,000 for his whole career and never won a game, let alone a World Series, if pitching and the rest of the lineup didn't produce. But there is a caveat to that caveat we must also acknowledge up front. Barry Bonds could be a pretty bad teammate. Bonds had famous blow-ups and dugout brawls. He generated some grim off-field headlines. And on top of all that, he was just plain old cruel to a lot of the people around him. This is well documented, and Bonds himself admits it. Baseball is as much a stand-up board game as it is a team sport, but insofar as bad vibes can hamper baseball success, Bonds' vibe spoiling must be considered. So, bearing that in mind, let's see what happened on the field. Bonds debuted in 1986 for the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team with new ownership, a new manager in Jim Leland, and a rebuilding reputation after the infamous Pittsburgh drug trials and threats of relocation the prior year. Bonds was a very good rookie, and by 1990, he had fully developed into a beast in the batter's box, on the base paths, and in left field. He made his first All-Star team, won his first Gold Glove, and was named NL MVP for the first time. With Barry as their anchor, Bobby Bonilla raking ahead of him, and contributions from vets like Andy Van Slyke and Sid Bream, the Pirates hit very well and supported a strong pitching staff headlined by 1990 Cy Young winner Doug Drabek. The Pirates won the NL East 3 seasons in a row in an era when winning your division sent you straight to the NLCS. But each of these 3 seasons, Pittsburgh failed to reach the World Series. In 1990, Bonds carried a season-ending slump into his first postseason, recording 6 walks but just 3 singles the whole series. With other stars also struggling, the Pirates fell in 6 games against the eventual world champion Cincinnati Reds. The Pirates got a little closer in 1991, taking a 3-2 series lead against the Atlanta Braves. But the potential clincher Game 6 in Pittsburgh was a pitcher's duel between Drabek and Steve Avery, and only Avery got a modicum of support to win a 1-0 shutout. The heart of Pittsburgh's batting order, Bonilla, Bonds, and Van Slyke, couldn't muster a single hit between them, and hardly did better against John Smoltz in a Game 7 defeat. Bonds was quoted during the '91 NLCS saying, "Baseball teams can't depend on one person," and for the second straight postseason, he backed that up. So that's 90 and 91. The 1992 NLCS was different in a few ways. By 92, the Pirates were a sinking ship. To cut costs, they'd let Bonilla walk to the Mets and traded away all-star pitcher John Smiley. It was a foregone conclusion that Bonds would leave in free agency at season's end. And he almost left earlier. Bonds could have been on the other side of that series. In the spring of '92, Pittsburgh agreed to trade him to the Braves, but Leland, exasperated by his crumbling roster, threw such an explosive fit that Pittsburgh backed out of the trade the day it was supposed to go public. Even depleted, the Pirates kept winning. Van Slyke played one of his best seasons, and Bonds won his second MVP. Yet, in games 1 through 4 of an NLCS rematch with the team that almost acquired him, Bonds looked like his usual postseason self. The man one writer nicknamed Mr. Knocktober, like Reggie Jackson, but not, had just 1 hit and 0 RBI as Pittsburgh fell behind 3-1 in the series. Game 5, though, was kind of a playoff breakthrough for Bonds. Stirred by a pep talk in which Leland was like, "Hey man, no matter what, you're about to become a free agent and get paid a lot, so just have fun," Bonds produced. He had 2 hits, including this RBI double in the middle of a huge first inning. Then he made this all-out 4th inning catch to stop Ron Gant from driving in a run. Bonds stayed hot in Game 6, swatting his first postseason home run off Tom Glavine to lead off the 2nd inning of a 13-4 Pittsburgh victory.
Deep to right field, way back and gone.
That set up another Game 7 in Atlanta, and through 8 innings, the Pirates looked like they'd get their revenge. Bonds didn't do much with his bat, but Drabek was splendid on the mound. Pittsburgh entered the bottom of the 9th up 2-0, 3 outs away from the World Series. Drabek didn't get any of those outs. First, Atlanta star Terry Pendleton cracked a leadoff double. Then, Gold Glover Jose Lind did something incredibly rare, mishandling David Justice's grounder to allow men on 1st and 3rd.
A man who has made only 6 errors during the regular season.
Drabek walked former Pirate Sid Bream on 4 pitches, another rare event for a master of control. With the bases loaded, Leland opted to pull Drabek and mobilize closer Stan Belinda, who immediately surrendered a sac fly to Ron Gant. Then another walk on a tough call.
He wanted it. He thought it was a strike.
But after Brian Hunter's unthreatening bases-loaded pop-out, all the Pirates had to do was take care of little-used pinch hitter Francisco Cabrera, who had no career playoff hits and hardly any playoff at-bats at that point. On a 2-1 count, Cabrera made good contact, and here's where our friend Barry came in. Andy Van Slyke claims that before that pitch, he suggested Bonds move in. Bonds flashed him a peace sign and didn't budge. Well, Cabrera's base hit scored Justice easily from 3rd to tie the game, and as Bonds took an extra long run from deep left to collect it, the oldish, weak-kneed Bream rounded 3rd. A perfect throw could have picked off Barry's old teammate and sent the game to extras, but this throw was far from perfect. Game over, series over. Barry's expression epitomized the feelings of a team that fell just short of a World Series for the 3rd year in a row. This time, they'd tumbled from the very precipice of victory. There was little doubt Bonds would leave in free agency. The only question was whether the 92 MVP's attitude and history of playoff mediocrity would hurt his market value. It did not. The Giants, the team of Barry's father and godfather, had come close to leaving for Tampa Bay, but new ownership kept them in San Francisco and promptly gave Bonds the richest contract in baseball history to that point. Under new manager Dusty Baker, Bonds and the Giants had their best season in decades. They entered September '93 with a healthy lead in the NL West. But they lagged soon thereafter while the second-place Braves rallied. On the last morning of the season, the 2 teams were tied, and Barry's squad would once again have to inch past Atlanta to go anywhere. The Braves handled the expansion Rockies in their afternoon game, so San Francisco would have to beat the Dodgers to trigger a 1-game playoff versus Atlanta. They did not. Rookie pitcher Solomon Torres fell behind early, and Bonds went silent in a 12-1 season-ending defeat. Well, silent with his bat, at least. After the loss, Bonds called Torres all kinds of names, and this from a dude who'd hit 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Still, Bonds was MVP again and Baker Manager of the Year. Baseball in San Francisco had been saved and things were looking up for the Giants, and then they kinda weren't. In a new era with an additional divisional playoff round, the Giants didn't win a single playoff game for the rest of the 90s. They made the postseason in '97, but lost in 3 games to a Marlins team managed by Barry's old friend Jim Leland and led at the plate by his old friend Bobby Bonilla. After sweeping the Giants, those Marlins would go on to win the World Series. San Francisco could have gone back to the playoffs again in '98. To do so, they had to win a one-game wildcard tiebreaker against Sammy Sosa and the Chicago Cubs. They fell behind in that one, but Bonds had opportunities to get them back in it. Down 4-0 in the top of the 7th, Bonds batted with the bases loaded and failed for the 4th time that night to get the ball out of the infield. Down 5-1 in the top of the 9th, Bonds again batted with the bases loaded and finally made good contact, but right to Sosa. At least that brought in a run. The whole middle of the lineup was cold and couldn't quite rally that inning. All told, the Giants left 11 men on base to lose 5-3, surrendering the wild card. They missed the postseason again in '99. Bonds showed up that season looking larger than before. Then he suffered a succession of injuries that limited his availability. 2000 would be the first season of Bonds' second, equally ringless career. He turned 36, but hit a career-high 49 homers, a small hint of what was to come. The Giants were in a new ballpark, and they contended because Bonds had some help. San Francisco finally had a solid pitching staff, and Bonds finally had a friend in the lineup, if not in real life. Bonds and Jeff Kent hated each other, but Kent just about kept pace with Bonds at the plate, actually beat him out for 2000 NL MVP, and stayed hot in the playoffs. Those Giants faced the New York Mets in an NLDS and took an early series lead thanks to a stellar Game 1 start from Livan Hernandez and a big third inning that featured a 3-run Ellis Burks homer and a Bonds RBI triple. But in the next 2 games of that series, Bonds looked more like the Mr. Knocktober of the early 90s. He had one big moment in Game 2. San Francisco was down 4-1 in the bottom of the 9th, but Bonds doubled, Kent followed with a tough single, and pinch hitter JT Snow drove them both in with a heroic homer to tie the game. But the Giants promptly fell behind again because of a dubious decision from Baker. Reliever Felix Rodriguez had struggled in the 9th inning, but he stayed out for the 10th and struggled again, surrendering a 2-out RBI single to Jay Payton.
And the first pitch to Jay Payton. Lined into center field, a base hit. Hamilton being waved around. He will score on a 2-out single by Payton.
In the bottom of that 10th inning, some bad base running hurt the Giants.
Boy, you have to wonder what in the world Armando Rios is thinking about there.
That left Bonds in a do-or-die scenario, down 1 run with 2 outs and a man on first. Bonds worked a 2-0 count against John Franco, then had himself a big ol' cut and whiffed. He took strike 2, then with a full count, took an iffy strike 3 to end the game. Game 3 was longer and just as painful. Bonds went hitless, including a strikeout against Franco that ended the top of the 9th tied with a man left on first. After Bonds left men on base again to exit the top of the 13th still tied, cult hero Benny Agbayani walked the thing off. San Francisco didn't even compete in the decisive Game 4 thanks to none other than Mets pitcher Bobby Jones. Bonds flew out to conclude Jones's legendary one-hit, series-clinching complete game, triggering a huge celebration at Shea Stadium. San Francisco slipped back out of the playoffs in 2001, but not because Bonds fell short in big moments. 2001 was the year a 37-year-old Bonds won his first of 4 straight NL MVPs. And of course, it was the year Bonds surpassed the single-season home run record Mark McGwire had set as a 34-year-old. It's amazing what you can do when you're past your prime if you just eat right and believe in yourself. Anyway, 2 of Barry's record 73 homers came in an October game versus the Dodgers that San Francisco desperately needed to catch the division-leading Diamondbacks. Number 71 to pass McGwire, then number 72 just for some extra drama. But despite those clutch and historic dingers, despite the celebration afterward, the Giants actually dropped that epic game 11-10. They missed the playoffs while Arizona took their division win all the way to a championship. The Giants finished behind Arizona again in 2002, but slipped into the playoffs as a wild card. Well, first Baker had to break up a mid-season dugout fight between Bonds and Kent, then the Giants rallied, then they won the wild card. In Bonds' career-long quest for a ring, that 0-2 run would come closer and crash harder than any of his teams before or since. Bonds at last provided clutch, consistent hitting throughout that playoff run. He hit 3 homers to finally get past the Braves in a 5-game NLDS. And in the NLCS, on the rare occasions the Cardinals didn't walk him, Bonds stayed productive. He was hitless in the decisive Game 5 of that series, but mustered an 8th inning sac fly to drive in veteran Kenny Lofton for the tying run, then watched Lofton hit the series-winning walk-off in the 9th.
Field a base hit. The throw by Drew to the plate. The Giants are going to the World Series.
At last, after logging 2,439 career games, 38-year-old Barry Bonds would play in his first ever World Series against the Anaheim Angels. And he opened it with a bang, homering in his first ever World Series at bat to kick off a 4-3 Giants victory on the road. Game 2 was a dramatic back-and-forth slugfest, but the Giants cooled off against Anaheim reliever Francisco Rodriguez, while Tim Salmon's dinger put the Angels up 11-9. Bonds chipped at the deficit, capping a night mostly spent walking to first with a thunderous solo shot in the 9th. But that was all the Giants had, and the series headed to San Francisco tied 1-1. In Game 3, the Angels took a big bite out of Livan Hernandez, and a Giants rally fell way short despite Bonds' 3rd homer of the series. In Game 4, the Angels dealt Bonds almost nothing but intentional walks, while the rest of the Giants woke up and rallied to win the game and tie the series. In Game 5, the Angels, for some reason, cut down their intentional walking, giving both Kent and Bonds pitches to hit, and they hit them. Bonds knocked an RBI double, Kent homered twice in a 16-4 romp.
Did he do it again? Yes, he did! Jeff Kent with his 2nd 2-run homer of this game.
The only real drama of that game was Dusty Baker's 3-year-old son and bat boy narrowly escaping a home plate collision thanks to JT Snow's quick hands. That win put the Giants up 3-2 in the series, on the verge of winning it all. And by the 7th inning of Game 6, they could practically taste the champagne. Sean Dunston had smacked a 2-run homer. Bonds had absolutely obliterated a pitch from K-Rod. Kent had come through a couple times. Russ Ortiz was dominating on the mound, and San Francisco led 5-0. Ortiz allowed a couple hits in the 7th, which prompted Baker to call the night for his starter. Amid the transaction, Baker slipped Ortiz the game ball as a keepsake. Kind of a faux pas, but relatively unpresumptuous given that the Commissioner's Trophy was already getting nude for the Giants. In any event, the Angels noticed the thing with the ball, got super mad, and coincidence or not, began to rally immediately after that breach of an unwritten rule. Felix Rodriguez took the mound and promptly surrendered a 3-run shot to the next batter, Scott Spiezio, 5-3 Giants. Bonds wouldn't get another chance to bat, but he did influence the outcome on defense. Darren Erstad homered to make it 5-4 Giants in the bottom of the 8th. Then, with Sean Figgins on first base, Garrett Anderson popped up to left and made Bonds look every bit of 38 years old. This slapstick routine allowed the runners to reach 2nd and 3rd. Troy Glaus doubled over Bonds' head to bring both men home, and the Angels led 6-5, completing a comeback the Giants couldn't undo. It was the largest ever comeback in a World Series elimination game, shifting all the momentum to Anaheim for the decisive battle. Bonds' World Series excellence didn't carry into Game 7, and the Giants as a whole fell flat. Anaheim attacked Hernandez again with a 3rd inning barrage that won them the 2002 World Series. For Bonds and the Giants, this was a devastating tumble from the brink of glory. Kenny Lofton says with that late 5-run lead in Game 6, he could feel the ring on his finger. After that ring slipped away, Bonds would never again get close. The 0-3 Giants improved to 100 wins as Bonds won yet another MVP, but he lost his father Bobby that year and began to feel the heat of the developing Balco steroid investigation. Bonds didn't do much in San Francisco's 2003 NLDS loss to the eventual champion Marlins, which turned on some narrow, sickening defeats. With the series tied 1-1, the Giants took an 11th inning lead in Game 3 on the road. But Jose Cruz's inexplicable error in the bottom of the inning opened the door for a Marlins rally. Pudge Rodriguez slapped a walk-off 2-run single right through that open door. The series ended in Game 4 with the not especially fleet of foot JT Snow trying to beat a throw to home plate and failing. This is the point at which my friend Grant Brisby would like me to tell you that The Giants employed one of the fastest players in baseball, Eric Young, who could have pinch run in that scenario, except he didn't make the postseason roster because they decided to take 2 lefty relievers instead, even though the Marlins had almost no left-handed hitters. So yeah, it was an upset and it was tough. Bonds wasn't done raking, but he would never again reach the playoffs. After the 2007 season, the Giants hustled Bonds out the door under a cloud of controversies stemming from his alleged steroid use and investigation for perjury. He missed out on San Francisco's run of even-year championships in the 2010s and never caught on elsewhere as a free agent. So, Barry Bonds retired without a ring, despite a handful of chances. Barry's titanic production disappeared in his early playoff runs. And when the postseason bat finally arrived, his arm couldn't deliver in a do-or-die moment. Bonds played brilliantly in his only World Series and got inches away from winning it all before one of history's most heart-rending collapses. Still, despite falling short, despite a reputation for juicing, and despite making a whole lot of enemies, Bonds left baseball with an astounding individual legacy. Nothing can take away the experience of watching him hit. No asterisk can eclipse the sheer magnitude of his production. And no one can deny that Barry Bonds helped pull 2 great baseball cities out of the doldrums. Thanks a lot for watching Untitled. If you want to see more episodes, click here. Or if you were really intrigued by Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds hating each other, we've got a whole beef history episode about that.